Hello everyone. Good afternoon, or good evening rather. Good evening. Can everyone hear me, or can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Yes, again we are back with another class. Welcome to week 4 of the JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship program for the data protection class. I'm happy to see that we have some people already on the call. Please, I would like to kindly ask if it's possible for we to have more people. You can send notice to your group or to the groups to kindly let the other mentees know that the session has officially started. Right. So moving on, right, not to waste any time. My name is Dennis Williams, and I'll be your moderator for today. And as we move on with class, I'm sure our mentors will be joining us soon. I can't see any mentor yet here on call, but I'm sure they'll be joining us soon to carry us through today's session. So, firstly, we recently started making the announcement the for a free legal clinic, which is hosted by JIIPCC Academy. We started this as an initiative to help people who are looking for free legal guidance, for legal guidance, but cannot necessarily afford it. So we made this, or we made this opportunity free, right? It's a free legal clinic for creatives, entertainers, athletes, innovators, and startups. So what they will be getting from the free legal clinic is a 20-minute consultation slot with professionals. So we have a list of professionals who are willing and ready to offer their services for absolutely no charges or costs, right? And they'll be giving free legal consultation for people with peculiar issues in the lines of those that relate to creatives, entertainment, athletics, innovation, and startups, right? And they will also be you can also submit your contracts if you have a contract and you want that to be reviewed or revised by a legal team, right? You can also do that, and our professionals will do well to assist in the best way that they can. So the registration link is there. You can also reach out to me for further details, and if you want to register yourself, like I said, you can reach out to me. But I also want to encourage you to share this with your friends, family, colleagues, those who you feel may need this particular service. We are doing this. We are offering this service, and we would like for you to also spread the word. So thank you very much. Moving on for today, right? So we're expecting on call. We're expecting a few mentors on call today. Firstly, of whom I don't think we're any strangers to is Mr. Solomon Okedara, right? I am not going to be reading Mr. Solomon's profile, saying that we've had him in previous classes. So I'm sure Mr. Solomon, I hope that Mr. Solomon will be able to join us today and in no sooner time so that we can hear from him, from his vast wealth of knowledge, and we can also receive some insights from his end. Secondly, is for our mentors for today is Mr. Ridwan Badmos. Mr. Ridwan Badmos Mr. Ridwan Badmos has also been here before. He has been with us in one of the sessions, and he has been a wonderful mentor. So he's also not yet here, but I am certain that in no sooner time he will be joining us shortly. Moving on, we have a new mentor that we're expecting in today's session, and that is Mr. Mateus Passos. Sorry if I didn't get the actual pronunciation of that name correctly. Mr. Mateus is a data protection officer Europe at JIIPCC, member of the EDPBS pool of experts, former global data protection officer at both, former data protection officer at Orioles, Portugal. Sorry for that pronunciation. And then former Assistant Data Protection Officer at the European Association of Data Protection Professionals, co-founder of the Data UX, a Brazilian consulting and training company in data protection. This in data protection, information security, and related matters such as artificial intelligence and blockchain. Since 2004, he has been an assistant professor in different universities, working in several higher education institutes in Brazil and Portugal. If you are interested in training, course, mentorship, or participating in lectures and events, don't hesitate to contact Mr. Mateos at that is his um, that is his email right there on the bottom of the flyer. To have access to the flyer, you can kindly visit our LinkedIn page at JIIPCC, right? And then you can just kindly go through his flyer and contact him if there's that need. Moving on, another mentor that I don't think we are strangers to and has also been in session for this quarter is Mr. Emmanuel Ewere. Mr. Emmanuel, okay, I can see Mr. Emmanuel is already here with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We're happy to have you here. Um, so thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for joining. So, no further introductions. I think it's safe for us to to just jump into the session for today. Our topic for today is data breach management, right? And we want to hear from our mentors, give us intrinsic insights on the topic. We want them to help analyze and break down some of the points we have highlighted, such as understanding data breaches and their impact, detection and response, best practices for data breach management. So you're welcome, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you so much for joining. So right about now, the floor is yours. We would like to hear from you, if it's possible, in the next 20 minutes, a presentation from your end on the subject matter for today. You're welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone. Nice to connect with you all again. And for the last time I can remember, let me just log into my system. Last time I couldn't finish up my discussion because I was trying to connect. But today I'll be fully here with you, and I would like our engagements to be vice versa. I want the conversation to flow between you and I. So in as much, I'll just take an introduction, and after the introduction, then I will see how we can interact. So today we'll be looking at data breach management. As beautiful, as lovely as data is, as rich and beneficial the data stands, even regarded as the gold of the digital world, comes with a lot of fears and anticipated dangers. And I would like to break this to the simplest form for you to understand. So if you can remember the three elements of information technology, the three elements of information technology are confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. Don't forget CIA. If you can remember CIA, then you're halfway done. So data breach is actually an interruption to the CIA. an interruption to the confidentiality, a breach to the confidentiality, a breach to the integrity, and a breach to the availability, which could be done by maybe the organization or maybe an individual. But for you to understand this very well, when I say breach to confidentiality, so once the data of a data subject is exposed, or there is an unauthorized access to the data of a data subject, that is a breach to the confidentiality. Then breach to the integrity. Once the data of a data subject has been altered, tempered, or reduced, there is a breach to the integrity. Then breach to the availability. Once there is anything that will hinder the access to the data of a data subject, is also a breach. And this breach could be deliberate, could be an error, and could be due to vulnerabilities. And so therefore, measures must be put in place by an organization to ensure that any of these breach to the CIA does not happen. Now, there are several ways in which this breach has occurred over time. We know about ransomware. Most of you must have heard about ransomware. And in fact, we have several experiences that has happened, and we have cases as well that has even gone to court. And but ransomware seems to be something that let me break it down again to the simplest form. When an attacker hacks into, let me use hack here, hack into your whole database, deprive you access to it, and will request that you pay. No, let me use another simple word. Maybe you pay a ransom before you can gain access to it. So that is ransomware. Now, this has happened. So we have a lot of cases that I would have loved to discuss one, but let me just take the introduction before we can start digging deep into this. We have other forms in which these attacks and these breaches have occurred over time, and generally, every organization must have an impact assessment for the prevention, and in case this happens, there must be on ground measures to mitigate, and for future reasons, there must be plan to prevent future occurrence. So I'll just take this time out now and maybe just let me see who I can interact with. Yeah, we have 23 participants here. So I can just throw some little questions, and I want us to just get along and see how you guys have gone, because I know that you guys took out your time to prepare your slide and you guys did a good discussion about it. So what are those things a company tends to lose as a result of a data breach? Who can answer this question? Hello, do I have people in the house? We have 22 right now, 22 participants. What are those things you think that a company tends to lose when there is a data breach in their system? Yes, Femi, tell me. I think
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Yes, my name is Olorunfemi Akinjite. I am a 400 level law student of Elizade University. So answer your question, so when a company experiences a data breach, I think one of the things that a company stands to potentially lose is its reputation to the consumers, and it can also lose some amount of money or confidential information, like certain confidential data and some financial information that are not meant to get out, or it can experience certain like lawsuits against the company, which can lead to financial loss. So those three things, sir.
Thank you very much. Brilliant of you. I love the fact that you started with reputation. Every responsible organization, they are very mindful of their reputation, and they guide it in fact, let me use the biblical term, they guide it with all jealousy. They guide it and ensure that, because that reputation is what sells them better than their advertisement. So if you want to maintain a good name, some people call reputation goodwill. If you want to maintain that goodwill, that reputation, that speaks very loud, then you must ensure that you have measures on ground that prevents, that controls and mitigates, and also prevent future occurrence of any. And how do they do this? They put in certain measures on ground, which we will look into with time. And I'll come in. Okay, before I go to the next one, who else can tell me more? We have a lot of things that companies tend to lose when such data breach occurs. I want us to interact. Who can give me another one? Thank you very much, Femi.
Good evening,
sir. Who else is talking?
Deborah? Good evening, sir. Yes, Deborah, sir. My name is Deborah.
Good. Yes. Nice to meet you, Deborah.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So another thing that our companies tend to lose is customers' trust and loyalty. When this data breaches occur.
Right, very correct. This is very, very connected to the reputation that we spoke about few weeks ago, or let me say about a month ago. GT Bank had this issue where we learned that there was a vulnerability that resulted to some data breach. I don't know if you guys can remember something like that. The customers were panicking. In fact, I knew someone that removed all his money completely from the bank because they needed to protect themselves. So if you want any organization that wants to retain the trust of their customers, they must ensure that they have measures on ground to prevent, to control, and to prevent future occurrence of data breach. The data breach that we will look intensively into shortly. Yes, I have someone else. Blessing. Yes, Blessing, tell us something. Very good. I'm happy you guys are talking now. Blessing, can you unmute yourself?
I got to finish.
Blessing, can you unmute? Someone else is trying to say something.
Yes, I've done that. Good evening.
Okay.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please tell us.
The issue of identity theft. If a company, if an organization should lose their data, it's possible for their hackers to clone an account based on the data they've gotten out of them. And without account cloning, they can scam their clients, divert funds, and even process negotiate for online loans without their knowledge. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Blessing, that is brilliant. Very correct. I'll give you guys another example. A few months ago as well, we learned that a foreign company, had access to our NIN, and they were selling it for 150 naira per person. In fact, the investigator went as far as purchasing the NIN of the minister. So that was a complete abuse and shame to our government, to our NCC, because if they could allow such vulnerability to happen, that shows that we don't have measures on ground to prevent. And even when this information came on ground, they denied it. Instead of trying to mitigate, instead of trying to control the whole thing, to stop the occurrence, they were trying to shy away from it. But let's not dwell richly on the whole example. Just to let you know that if such thing happens, the company can be prone to the hacker stealing vital information, stealing data. Maybe in fact, the data subject is definitely not safe. So I agree with your point, Blessing. Thank you very much for that brilliant point. Who else can give me the last one so we can go to the next part of the introduction? Who else?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Can you tell us your name, please?
Okay, my name is Emmanuel.
Okay, Emmanuel, nice. My namesake. Tell us something. Good.
Okay, sir. I think since companies are set up for a maximum profit, I think when there's a data breach, the stock value of a company is naturally going to go down. Shareholders are going to lose confidence in the company, and maybe at the point tend to withdraw their interest in the company. So the company might, in a sense, maybe get into bankruptcy if a bulk of their shareholders lose interest in the company and decide to withdraw.
Brilliant, Emmanuel. Brilliant. I will give you an example. Very brilliant of you. This is connected to the reputation that we spoke about. Just immediately after the data breach in GT Bank, they started advertising their shares. They started disturbing customers with messages. Those having GT Bank accounts who understand what I'm talking about, they were sending messages back to back for people to come buy their shares. But a lot of the customers had no confidence in the bank. They had no trust because they knew what just happened. If you have a strong brand, if you have that reputation, certainly things like that will not happen. So I want you to understand something, that when it comes to data breach, it's not only the organization that is in trouble, even the data subject, not safe. So therefore, measures must be put down to protect both the organizational data and also that of the data subject. And also, as you guys rightly, someone mentioned identity theft. I want you to also know that when it comes, and someone also mentioned reputation, and someone also mentioned financial. I want you to know that there are lots of things that a company tends to suffer when such breach happens. And there must be proactive measures to prevent and respond to any form of data breach. That is the general expectation and framework that has been put on ground to ensure. So that takes us to the impact assessment. When we say impact assessment, I will still break it down to the simplest form. When it comes to impact assessment, it has to do with simple questions. What caused the breach? How did the breach happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? So when you answer these basic questions, then you now come to how can we control it? And in the course of controlling, how can we mitigate it? And after mitigation, that comes to the next stage of how can we prevent it? I have tried to break it down to the simplest form. And at the end of the class, at the end of this session, I know that we will take questions. So let me give room for other speakers to come up, and we will be back on the interactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. So far, we don't have any other mentor on the call. So please, sir, if it's possible, right, we would like for you to just carry on before we take mentee's presentation.
All right, that's okay. That's okay. So we will also look at some other aspect as well. Let me just now, if you guys remember, when it comes to data of data subject in particular, I want you to know something, that the Data Protection Act is particular about one person. It's particular, very particular about the data subject. So, and when let me use the right word, when a controller or processor is dealing with a data subject, what is the transaction between them? The transaction between them involves the following. One, the collection. When they collect the data, what happens? They store it. When they store it, they use it. When they use it, sometimes they do what? They transfer it. So, in all these stages of the transaction, there are requirements of every organization. There are framework and structures that every organization must have on ground to ensure that the data of a data subject is safe, and they give accounts. That leads us to accountability of the measures, the technical, and let me not get it complicated. They must give account of how the measures on ground they are taking to ensure that the data subject is safe. So, is there any question before I proceed? Any question? Okay, let's continue then. So, as I was describing, starting from the transaction between a controller and a data subject, I brought out the stages that are involved in the transaction. And I also emphasize the fact that there must be structures and framework on ground to ensure that a data subject is safe. And there must be what they call the IRP. That is Incident Response Plan. Incident Response Plan. When I say Incident Response Plan, what do I mean? It's very simple from the word Incident Response Plan, how you respond to incident. Show us the plan. I am breaking this to the simplest form so that everyone will get it. What are the plans you have on ground to respond to any breach that may occur? Show us. That list, or that is part of the accountability that I'm talking about. So every organization must have a document that contains step-by-step measures in which they will use to carry out a proactive response to any data breach that may occur. And based on international standard, let me not call it international, let me call it based on best practices, based on international best practices, which I know that a lot of our companies in Nigeria are really, really not living up to expectation. Number one, a company must have that person, a DPO, that connects with the statutory body. The topic for the DPO will be for the next, so I won't really dig deep into it. The data protection officer. So they must have that person that they can hold accountable. So every company that has a certain number of employees must have that person that must report and give. If you remember what I said about the IRP, who remind me, what is the IRP? Say it in your
The
own
incident response plan.
Brilliant. What do you understand about it?
Is the step-by-step procedure that an organization has to respond to data breaches when it occurs.
Brilliant, Joy. That is very brilliant. Thank you for that very clear definition. So with this definition, I know certainly well that you understand this part. So I believe everyone is just like Joy. So when it comes to the IRP, every company must show that they have a comprehensive, in fact, some companies even go beyond the best practices. They go beyond and above to ensure that they can prove to their customers and to other competitors that they're doing very well in order to promote their reputation. So what is this best practices all about? So having a response team, apart from the figure that I mentioned, the DPO, that is the poster person of the data protection officer, which is the face of the data protection. The next is to have a team. So there must be a team. Let me break it down so that the team will not be complex. They must have an office where people are to analyze and discuss on every details that they have. And they should have a team available to respond to any breach that may occur. It's not like when this breach will happen, they'll start looking for who to call, or they'll start trying to call somebody that is not part of the company or trying to connect with another. No, they want you to have a response team on ground. And that team must include a technical expert, someone that knows people, not one, people that knows about data protection. So as you are in this course, I want you to know that you're being prepared for a better future, for a better positioning, to be part of a response team, to be a data protection officer. So at the end of these studies, I want you to tell yourself, I am capable to be part of any response team because I understand what data protection is all about. So they need persons with the technical knowledge, know-how of data protection, breach management, breach prevention. Secondly, they need that poster person that must be accountable. The team must be accountable. When I say accountable, they must give reports. When breach happen, they must give. In fact, there are statutory notices and deadlines available, which I believe most of you must have discussed, and you must have discussed it in your slides. There are statutory notices that must be met. So the response team, they are tasked with this responsibility to ensure that every statutory notice and requirements are met. So they are more like the compliance. They comply with statutory notices and everything. And as well, they must show that they have that capacity to prevent any breach that may have occurred previously. So because because they have a well-documented system, they can easily carry out an impact assessment. Let me break it down. They can easily check through their system and see where the faults happened and how they can correct such. I have explained this in the simplest term. So every company must also engage in periodic training of this team. This response team must gain periodic training so that they will be up to date with best practices. So just know that once you join any response team in any big organization, you're open to bigger trainings. If your company is an international company, they will take you to different parts of the world to gain relevant knowledge that will help their organization. So what does the Nigerian Data Protection Act says about data breach and data management? I'll just the NDPA actually provides for measures that a controller must adhere to. Also, a processor, let me call them together. A controller and a processor must comply to. And where there is a failure to meet up, penalties as well has been prescribed accordingly. So with this, I think that I will wait for our further discussion later. Maybe we can take your presentation. and we can discuss further afterwards. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for that wonderful and very insightful, simple to the point introduction to today's topic. Unfortunately, two of our mentors confirmed that they will not be around, and we are still expecting Mr. Solomon to join in. But that's notwithstanding, we'll be taking that notwithstanding, we'll be taking presentations from our mentees. Seeing that Mr. Emmanuel has promised to be with us to the end of the session, I'm sure he will be doing well to analyze and evaluate our presentation and also responding to certain issues that he may have noticed in the presentation. So please, we would like for the two groups, if it's possible, to kindly, okay. I can see Mr. Ridwan is with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. Mr. Ridwan, thank you for joining. We're happy to have you in class. Mr. Ridwan, can you hear me, sir?
Can you hear me? Good evening.
Yes, good evening, sir. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. It's nice having you in session, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. So
so please, we just want to hear from you, sir, in the next few minutes, if it's possible, for you to just give us a highlights of data breach management, and then we'll take presentations from the mentees.
Okay. Yeah, so good evening once again, everyone. I apologize for coming in late. I was out and I just took the opportunity to quickly join and put in some few contributions to the discussion. And I think I was able to listen to catch a bit of what Mr. Ray was discussing, especially in terms of, I think the first thing I had was as regards technical skill sets for I think for people or stakeholders working in the area of data breach management, which is where I'm going to take it from. So I appreciate Mr. Berry. I mean, I learned a lot from the few things I was even able to hear from him. So taking this from the technical point of view, I mean that's most of the people or most of the stakeholders that's going to be working, as regards data breach management or data breach generally, are most likely going to be, technical people, in terms of, because most of it has to do with, prevention. And so of course, from the legal, standpoint, we would have, DPOs or legal officers working with the cybersecurity units or the information security departments of a company to ensure that they have comprehensive and robust, policies, data breach policies that addresses how, employees should, address issues that should not, that should not lead to data breaches. So, but notwithstanding, most of the operations, most of the work in terms of preventing data breaches, or even after it has happened, will most likely lies in the hands of cybersecurity professionals. So, and that's the reason it's quite important for all of us. I mean, lawyers as well, especially if you're going to be working as a privacy officer or a data protection officer, DPO, to really understand this space very well, to understand the concept of data breach. And because that's how you're going to, with that in mind, or with that capability of interacting with security professionals, it will make it easy for you to interact with them. It will make it easy for you to understand, what's the need, how to make their job easy, and how to even manage, incidents when they happen. So when I say incidents, it means I'm referring to incident the incidents that lead to data breaches. So when we say incident, it means, we have different, that's another thing that you also need to familiarize yourself with. the terms, the different concepts in when we're talking about data breaches. So we have things called events, incidents, data breaches. So you really need to understand these terms to be able to use them, properly and to communicate effectively with your different teams as well. So when I say teams, from different departments, so it could be from marketing, from legal, from cybersecurity. So whenever we have a data breach, you have lots of people working together because you need to contain, that breach, that incident. So from escalating. So if it is from you communicating with different stakeholders, from maybe to different departments to ensure that you are limiting the damage that the incident is going to cause, or you are you are communicating with regulators, or you're even communicating with your customers, the customers of the company, to ensure that they are, it depends, to ensure that their data is protected. So that's the technical angle. I just want to quickly mention that. I know I'll come back to that because there's a very important thing I would like to discuss. And we don't see a lot of people looking at how, privacy could also be one of the major way of reducing or mitigating the impacts of data breaches. I mean, you could think that, privacy is just you. When we talk about privacy, it's, it's giving your customers or ensuring that individuals have more control of their data. But when you look at privacy or data protection principles and you're really adhering to it, even starting from that point, you have something called data minimization, especially data minimization, and other areas of data protection principles as well. They were really up an organization in terms of data breaches, in terms of any incidents, any cybersecurity incidents or security incidents that may affect the company. So what I mean by that is when we're talking about data minimization, if you're not collecting, if you're collecting only necessary, personal data, so that means you won't be having lots of issues to deal with. So a very good example is if you only need the name and address of your customer, and then it's good, or the name and maybe email address. So if you're providing a digital service, let's take that as an example. And maybe company A is doing that, just taking the names and then the email address to provide a digital service to a particular customer. Then company B is going far and beyond because they are looking at the possibility of deploying their AI systems to further provide services, or to they're not even sure of the services that they're going to be providing yet, but they're looking at that possibility of enlarging or expanding the services they provide. So they're collecting the names, the email addresses, the phone numbers, maybe even the location, even though they don't need all those things. And when you have a data breach, and company A has to deal with just the name and email addresses, and then why company B has to deal with a lot of, there's been a breach, or there's been an unauthorized access to a lot of other types of data that they were not supposed to collect. So there's a lot of risks that's going to, or there's a lot of issues that company B is going to deal with in terms of privacy issues and then security issues. So what I mean by privacy issues is there's a lot of violations there, right? Privacy violations in terms of you collecting more data than necessary. So that's a violation of the data minimization principle in the first place. And even purpose limitation as well, and other things. So there's a lot of privacy regulatory issues. And then when we're talking about the security issues, and I think that's where we can even go back to the impacts that data breaches can occur from a data breach incident. You can look at it from the different types of data that the unauthorized person, maybe an hacker, or even it could be an internal person, an internal employee of the company that has access, unauthorized access to that data. So they have much more data in their hands, and they can use it. They have more opportunities, so to say, to use that data for. I mean, if financial data is also included, of course, they can also perpetrate, financial crimes, on that data that they have. And of course, so there's going to be more. I mean, if you look at the different parts, from reputational damage to regulatory fines to litigation or legal issues. So all those things are going to be very compounded, compared to if it was just simple data that they collected. And that will take me to, yeah, I'm just talking. I hope you're getting the whole concept that I'm trying to make. I'm just trying to explain how to look at all these things, how I look at it, and from the privacy point of view. And because most times you look at many people take, you only restrict, many people restrict the discussion of data breaches to just security, to just cybersecurity or information security. But then it's, I'm an advocate of looking at how privacy will, to a very large extent, reduce, kind of limits. Number one is even prevents it from happening. And number two is then mitigating the impacts of a data breach if it's later occurs. So I was talking about how you can, how private, I've spoken about how, complying or abiding with the data protection, one of the data protection principles, two of them, can ensure that there's low impact, so to say, on an organization. And another thing maybe I should quickly talk about that, because I'm not sure I have a lot of time. One of the areas I like talking about in terms of mitigating or even preventing is pets. And of course, when we talk about preventing, there are a lot of tools. Me personally, as a tech and cybersecurity data protection lawyer, I have series of, I won't say series, I have many, actually, very many certifications in cybersecurity, and I even have ones that are specific to preventing data breaches. Like I have two different cloud security certifications from Microsoft. So the reason I'm saying this is just to establish or to stress the fact that even if we are not cybersecurity specialists, we should still go as far as knowing about what these things mean and how you can really help your team and the organization to prevent such things from happening. Because there are a lot of reasons. I know we've talked about the psychological aspects of it, in terms of it might be someone that that might be affected, or even you yourself, in terms of protecting the organization's data. So you just need to think about yourself, that if you were the one, or maybe if a relative that is in the shoes of your customers, to put the security and privacy issues at heart. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. And then to go to the area that I was saying that I'm very passionate about, which is privacy engineering, privacy by design, or privacy enhancing technologies, or privacy preserving techniques to protect or enhance privacy. It's an area I would like you guys to really look into. We don't really have lots of people, especially in this part of the world, Nigeria and Africa in general, that's looking at how you can create privacy capabilities to further enhance the use of personal data. Because one thing that you really need to understand is that the reason we have data protection laws, regulations, is not really to prevent people from using personal data, but then what those laws are trying to do is to ensure that they're using those personal data in an ethical manner. You understand? And so it's not about stifling. I mean, you see it all over ICU when ICU is always talking about when they are releasing guidelines or different publications on how organizations can comply with privacy or data protection laws. So they say they even talk about improving innovation, and that's where we might really talk about a lot about pets. So privacy enhancing technologies, because what pets really allows you to do is to use personal data while complying with data protection laws, and it's a lot. It has a lot to do with privacy by design as well. And of course, you will agree with me that you've seen privacy by design and privacy by default in data protection laws, even if you've not seen, and when we're talking about technical, when we talk about technical and organizational measures to ensure the security of privacy of personal data, it's not just about security measures. It's not just about security controls like encryption, multi-factor, two-factor, or two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, or maybe it's identity management and things like that. It actually goes as far as using advanced technologies like pets as well. So when you're using, I don't. So I just don't know if I have enough time. I would have really gone deep into privacy enhancing technologies. But what you just need to know, in terms of in line or as it's related to data breaches, is that there are some limitations that you might have with some security tools that will be enhanced or that will be covered by some of these privacy enhancing tools, as I have kind of thought. So a very good example is, when you use encryption, most times, or as far as I know, when you're using encryption, you're encrypting data that are at rest, so, or data in transit. But most times you can't. When data is in use, when you want to use the data, then you kind of decrypt it. You understand? And encrypted data is not going to be decrypted for it to be used. But the issue is that data can still be breached. You can still have cybersecurity issues. Unauthorized access to data that is in use. So, for you, what I mean by that data is in use, data at first is when you're storing data in storage. It's not currently in use, it's just in your database. What I mean by database is or data storage. All of you use different cloud storage like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. So if you have the data there without them being in use, you just keeping them there. That's data in use, and then data in transit is probably even sending. This is I want to maybe I can say what we're doing now is the data in transit. It's just very fast. The process of me speaking and then you hearing me, that's kind of data in transit as well. Or if you're sending messages to another person and then even they don't get anything, that's data in transit. So that data is, of course, is going to be encrypted when it's in transmission. But then when it's in use, like you're processing personal data, maybe when you're sending payments, when you're trying to transfer money to another person, so to say. But the essence of what I'm trying to say, the point I'm trying to make is that when it's in use, it's going to be decrypted, and when it's decrypted, it can still be accessed by unauthorized persons, by bad actors, hackers. So how do you prevent this? There's something called homomorphic encryption. So homomorphic encryption ensures that the data is encrypted at every point in time, and it's as a result of it's one of the privacy enhancing technologies. So meaning that it's as a result of privacy concerns that this technology came to be, or this technology came to be, further researched on. So of course, we have all the discussions in terms of maybe the limitations of some of these privacy enhancing technologies, the specs. But the general point is that when you look at these things as well, they try as much as, they're there to ensure that you have, you have the privacy and security capabilities in place. So especially from the technical standpoint. And the way you as a core legal person or a core, data protection lawyer is going to come in is in terms of, translating privacy regulations in terms of if those pets really aligns with the expectations of the law. So in terms of, okay, these, because if you don't, how do you, because there's something called audits, there's something called, let me just say audits or testing in terms of when you have implemented or configured a particular technical measure as the law has stipulated, then how do you ensure that that particular technical measure aligns with the expectation or the requirements of law? If you don't understand what it is, sometimes that's the issue I have. And of course, there are many ways you can go about this. And that's, I've said this, I believe it's this same class that I'm not advising anybody to go, deep diving into the technical realm, you learning about software engineering and the likes. No, there are other ways that you can actually do this. That's the path I chose, but there are other ways you can do this by ensuring that you are interacting with technical people every time. You are and that has to do with you being inquisitive, you wanting to know more about something. So I know a lot of lawyers. You will see it every time, even in some lawyers' articles when they are talking about technical things, technical concepts sometimes. So it's just for you to understand those things and how they work. And so knowing it's not, I won't say kind of having a bad view. I don't know if that's how to say it, but the essence is you having a very good understanding, a comprehensive understanding of how those technologies work. And if according to what the law says, that this should be done, that maybe you need in terms of data classification or in terms of collection of data, especially when we're talking about cookies. Okay, so because cookies, when you're getting cookies, it has to do with you implementing or deploying some sort of cookies tools. So how do you ensure that even if that particular cookie tool complies with all the regulations, because most of the cookie tools I know are from foreign jurisdictions, how do you ensure that they are in compliance with spec? Of course, we all know that most data protection laws, many data protection laws are similar, but we might have some few differences. But then how do you ensure that it's really working? Even from the privacy point of view, from the regulatory point of view, in terms of the provisions of law, and then in terms of the practicality as well. A tool that is made for foreign companies, are you sure it's also going to be it's going to work for local entities as well? It's going to work. It's going to be. If it's going to work for local use, so to say. So essentially, there's a lot of things to talk about. So I just felt to talk about it in this way to kind of bring everything together and talk about that area that is less talked about, which is privacy engineering, or how privacy can really can serve as one of the best practices of data breach management. So I'm not sure if I've covered everything in terms of the topic we have today. I think I'll quickly check that to see if there are any other things that need to be talked about. We're talking about data breach management, and we really need to talk about the legal point of view. When there's a data breach, and that's another reason you need to work with technical teams. When I say technical teams, I mean security departments, technology departments, and all the departments, even marketing as well. But all the departments that has to do with working on a product, building an application or something like that, or a system. So you really need to know when a data breach has occurred so that you're going to comply with requirements of law in terms of the, how many hours you need to report that breach to the to the regulator. And then of course you also need to even because it's your security team that's going to determine if an incident or an event is a security incident, and even if that security incident is is a data breach, occurrence or not. So you need to first of all decide or determine that before you then proceed to report that data breach to log it or to launch it there to actually report it to the regulator. And then you also need to understand, and that will be as a result of your conversation or discussions with other teams, technical team, to know if you need to also inform data, the data subjects, that's your customers, your clients of that, or even if you are a processor, a data processor, and you need to, inform the data controller. So all of these things you really need to understand, how everything works. I mean, that's from the legal standpoint now. And for you to have those information intact, for you to get them, on time, so that you will prevent issues where there would have been a data breach and you wouldn't know about anything until maybe after a while. I had a similar incident, even though it's not a cybersecurity thing, but it happens sometimes, especially if you're. We have DPOs. It could be outsourced DPOs that doesn't really work in that company because and that's one of the issues that you could have with an outsourced data protection officer, because the way things work sometimes they might not be communicated even internally. If you're working in-house, you are a DPO working in the company, sometimes information might take time before it gets to you. Then compared to if you're working outside, maybe you're a law firm, you're working in a law firm and then you're acting as DPO to a particular company, before information gets to you, it might take time sometimes. So an example I wanted to give was, even though it's not related to privacy, is that a client actually got a letter from the regulator, and they didn't send that to the law firm until probably after some days. They were actually supposed to respond within 22 hours, and then it wasn't maybe after. Of course, the 72 hours has already elapsed. So it wasn't after maybe 3, 4, 5 days that it was then sent to the law firm. So that's the reality. So that you need to kind of deal with. So you need to set in processes to ensure. So to always check up on. To always check. What I mean by checking up on the security team or the teams in charge of all this is really to maybe look at training them again, and then letting them know the impact of a data breach incident, data breach occurrence in terms of reputation, in terms of legal, and what have you. So there's a lot of things that I need to know. So you really need to. There's a lot of processes, even though it's. If you look at the provision of law sometimes regarding data breach, you might think that it's not very robust, not so much, but then it's actually the implementation that's really matters. And the same thing for privacy generally. So it's the implementation that really matters. So even if you have the documentation, of course, the plan. You knowing the law is the first thing. Then you documenting everything, that's the second stage, and then you implementing it. That's where the main work actually lies. So implementing means maybe training, and when I say training, I'm just not saying any kind of training, but in-depth training. You knowing what the company is or what will really benefits the team. And the other thing is implementing all kind of operation. I don't want to operationalize it now. I want you to understand the spirit of implementation that I meant. So maybe the security team, configuring or implementing security controls or different kind of measures in place in the product itself. So maybe building a data classification system or model, or even doing that, manually, where you have in the list of all the types of data you collect, maybe their personal data or sensitive personal data or special categories of data if you're looking at different jurisdictions, like especially the EU. So you need to have that, and you need to have it documented. And then you also, so that's I would say that's even documentation. Of course, part of implementation, it goes a bit above documentation, because you're doing a lot of work before you can even, have all those things written down. And then, but the extra work you'll have to do is, how do you then, you have that documentation. How does it align with the systems? If you're actually an actual tech company, so how do you ensure that the system aligns with what you have on the documents? So that will be done by the technical team. So how do you kind of, interact with them, discuss, converse with them to ensure that they know what they're doing? So if they don't have that, privacy knowledge of this is how the system is supposed to work. And even after you've, instructed them that this is what they need to do on the system to ensure that you have these capabilities to comply with regulation, then how do you confirm that that has already been done if you don't have some bits of technical know-how or know the best or a very effective way to kind of discuss with these teams? So those are the things that I think is, so I believe we understand a lot about data breaches now and their impacts. Even though I just mentioned, I believe Mr. Ray would have talked a lot about the impacts that you could actually see from. So I mentioned reputation, and you should already know this. This is constant. We would have talked about it when we're talking about privacy, non-compliance impacts. Not complying, a company not complying with privacy requirements, the impact it's going to have on their organization. So there's a lot of then best practices. I've talked a bit about best practices, and of course, it's generally you looking at the technical. We have different teams. We have, you know a lot about blue team, red team, even purple team, if you've not heard about that before. So red team is like the pen testers, the vulnerability assessments, professionals. So we'll look at, how, so what I'm saying essentially in terms of the best practices is, there are different things that these different teams can do to ensure that the products of the system is well protected, is well secured to reduce, the occurrence or the possibility or the probability of an occurrence happening, or even if it happens, reducing, mitigating the impact it's going to have generally. So I've talked about the red team a bit. Then the blue team are like the security engineers that work on different controls. So the vulnerability and the penetration tester, they call them pen testers. Sometimes they work on looking at kind of they're like, they call them white hackers, actually white hat hackers. In terms of, we have different types of, we have hackers generally. So people would think that hackers are bad actors that want to access your system, to steal data, information, things like that. But so those are black hat hackers. So we have gray, then we have, you can look for gray, but white hat hackers are those that they're good actors. They most times belong to the company, and what they do is to, think like hackers and try to see if there are any gaps, if there are any vulnerability that they can use to gain access to the system or to the company's systems or applications. And then purple, it's a combination of those two teams. So I don't really want to go deep into that. So there are different best practices that relate to those different areas. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And so I think the major thing I believe, I haven't had the opportunity to look at the presentation, but then what I'm really expecting is that you would have covered the legal aspects very well, and I look forward to listening to that area from the different teams. So I'm stopping there. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan. You shared a very, very insightful take and session on privacy as it relates to privacy concerns of the data breach management. You also tried to highlight some of the other areas, the impacts and best practices, and just generally around management. So thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for the insight you shared. So please, we want to get to Mentee's presentation. We'll be taking presentation from two groups, right? That is group one and group 2. So please, group 1, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Quickly make your presentation so that we can go to group 2. Or just before we do that, right? Sorry, just before we do the presentation, I would like for us to take pictures, right? I noticed that the environment, well, my own environment is getting a bit dark. So if that is possible, I would like for us to turn on our videos so that we can take pictures. So please, can we have mentees turn on their videos if that's possible? Thank you, Pelumi. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you so much. All right, thank you, Margaret. We would soon be continuing with the session. Can we have more mentees turn on their video if that's possible? And please, you can also smile for the camera. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. So I think this is the first time I'm seeing your face in real life. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, please just a moment. Give me 1 minute. All right, thank you very everyone. I really sincerely do appreciate. So back to presentations. Group 1, please quickly share your screen and start your presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Please,
Yes,
can
good
you see
evening.
my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry, please give me a few minutes.
Okay, while you're trying to set up your screen, you can start with your introduction so that,
Okay.
well, you can just be doing that while we wait for the screen to come up.
Okay, so my name is Kwelumi and I'm presenting for Group 1 on the topic Data Breach Management, data breach trends and patterns, risk assessment and prevention strategies, data breach impact analysis and detection technologies and techniques. That's majorly the topic we'll be talking about. So from our introduction, we stated the fact that 1 in 10 data breaches are as a result of phishing, and some incidences of data breaches involve ransomware attacks. Now, phishing is where scammers send fake emails or messages that pretend to look like messages from legitimate companies, so people can be deceived into giving away maybe confidential information like their passwords or debit card details. On the other hand, ransomware attacks are where hackers gain access to an organization's system or an individual's phone or device, and then they try to encrypt it or they hide it. The person is unable to access it, and then they now demand a ransom from the person for them to be able to retrieve the stolen information. So a lot of data breaches occur majorly from phishing and ransomware attacks. And ransomware attacks are like kidnapping, but kidnapping data in this sense, and then asking for ransom from whoever they stole it from. Now, other attacks that can lead to data breach include email impersonation and malware, like where an individual clicks on an email attachment or link that is sent to them that actually just leads them to a false website where maybe their device gets hacked or something like that. We've heard of where people's WhatsApp gets hacked, maybe because they were sent a certain link or etc. So a lot of people have been victims of this. For a lot of people and even companies have been victims of these false emails. And although most of us are able to detect this thing, it is important to discuss how we can manage this, how companies can manage data breach when it occurs. Now, on the slides, I think it is not still sharing. Or can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but it's not sharing. But don't worry, I'm trying to access it.
Okay. Okay, so now what is data breach? Data breach is simply the unauthorized access to confidential information of individuals and organizations. Now, a lot of hackers are working overtime to get confidential information from organizations and from persons so they can make money. And although they are trying to make money on their own end, it leads to financial losses for these individuals who are hacked or these companies that are hacked, and also leaves the privacy of individuals vulnerable to whatever these hackers want to do with it. Now, examples of some losses resulting from data breach can be a loss of your bank account information or your login details or email accounts, as well as sensitive health information. We are all probably familiar with cases of lost social media apps where someone said, oh, lost account at so followers because of. So these are examples of data breach to individuals. But data breach to organizations are even like more severe, and it can lead to loss of sensitive trade secrets, and they can suffer financial and reputational damage, and obviously also customers will lose trust for such an organization. Even future investors will also lose interest in such an organization, as has been said by our first mentor. Now, the next slide talks about how data breaches can occur. As I already said earlier, most occur as a result of ransomware attacks or phishing, but then some other ways that data breaches can occur can be where a person's devices are stolen or where they lose it and people get their hackers get their hands on it and use it for whatever they want to use it to do. And then maybe where also people use weak passwords for their devices or their email or social media accounts. That can result in data breaches as well. Also, there can be an insider attack, especially in companies or organizations where maybe the staff are not satisfied. They can steal data and sell it to these hackers who can do whatever they want to do with it. Also, we have targeted attacks, maybe hackers that know influential people and specifically try to obtain their data through whatever means. And also we have exploitation of weak systems and misconfiguration, which is what data privacy obviously, or data privacy and cybersecurity, that's majorly what it seeks to tackle, to ensure that whatever system that an organization has is strong enough to prevent any form of data breaches. Now, the next slide talks about some notable data incidents that have happened generally in the world. And the number one in Nigeria is when the NDPC fined 4 banks for various data breaches of individuals' data sometime in, I think it was this year. Yeah, sometime this year, June this year, where they were fined, yes, 4 banks and a couple of other institutions, although they were not named. The NDPC chairman stated that they were fined for data breaches that occurred. Also, there was Ticketmaster that suffered from a data breach that happened to a third-party cloud platform where they kept the data of where they kept customers' data, and that third-party cloud platform was breached, and the data of over 500 million people were at risk, and it was even sold. Yeah, it was even up for sale on the dark web by hackers, and you can imagine the reputation of such a company at this point. Assuming I could share my screen, I've been able to see the other ones, like Change Healthcare ransomware attack in 2024. So Change Healthcare ransomware. Change Healthcare is a very popular. It's like one of the largest healthcare technology company in the United States, and they suffered from a ransomware attack sometime in February this year, and a lot of data was stolen. So having the healthcare information of a lot of people stolen will obviously lead to bad reputation, as we are discussing now, and will also lead to customers not trusting this healthcare company anymore. So moving on, the next slide talks about risk assessment and prevention strategies. Now, A data risk assessment identifies, evaluates, and prioritizes potential risk to an organization's data. So risk assessment is basically what the name says it is. It assesses the potential risk or loopholes in the security infrastructure of the online or offline data storage or processor of an organization. It basically looks for where, okay, what is the, okay, they look into the security infrastructure, okay, where are the weaknesses in this system? What can we do to ensure that we improve our infrastructure, and we also ensure that we are complying with data protection legislations. Now, where this assessment is carried out, organizations are able to identify the likelihood of risk and weigh any possible impact of data breaches so they can know what to set in place or remove. And it informs organizations so they can adequately allocate resources to prevent and minimize risk of breaches. Now, moving on, the slides also talks about a plan, like risk assessment incident plan, how to go about risk assessment, basically. So the first here is to define the scope of the data, identify data assets, classify the data, identify threats, determine risk level, evaluate risk, assess vulnerability, develop mitigation strategies, implement controls, and then monitor and review all of this that has been put in place. This is a very helpful tool for a lot of organizations to ensure that any possible risk that can happen or any possible data breach is prevented before it happens. Now, the next slide talks about measures to prevent data breaches. And first and most important is obviously to strengthen the security by implementing advanced data encryption. And also scheduling backups to check the system to see if there are any if there's anything sneaky going on that hackers are trying to get into. Then the next is to ensure that companies cultivate good culture that prioritizes the data security and empowers the employees to be vigilant in protecting sensitive data. So this can be maybe paying them on time or just remunerating them properly so that they are not tempted to maybe sell individual data or give very sensitive information out. Another would be to invest in security tools and to create a well-defined data breach response plan to mitigate any damage that occurs. Because the information of most companies are now on the internet, it can be almost impossible to prevent data breaches. But where there are now data breaches, it is advisable for companies to already have a well-defined data breach response plan before such is happening. So when it happens, they are not taken by shock or confused or just left in the dark. Now, next is data breach impact analysis. Both of our mentors have already spoken a lot about the impact of data breaches, but some of the impacts in the short term can be, okay, our slide here divides them into short-term and long-term impact. So some of the short-term impacts can be financial losses, reputational damage, legal consequences, obviously, operational disruption. The company might not be able to function as it ought to. And then in the long term, they can still, financial losses is almost like inevitable, and it can set the company back a lot of years. Also reputational damage as well, loss of business opportunity, intellectual property threats, loss of consumer trust, as has been said earlier, and also compliance challenges. Now, moving on to the next slide, we talked about detection technologies and techniques. That is the technologies and techniques to detect these data breaches and to prevent them before they happen or while they are still at the manageable stages. So some of the technologies that we have here include intrusion detection systems that monitor network traffic for signs of unauthorized access. And then we have intrusion prevention systems that block suspicious network traffic. The intrusion detection system will detect at that moment whether there's existing data breaches, while the intrusion prevention systems will prevent any possible data breaches that might want to come up. So it is up to the company to set up these systems. There are various systems that exist online. It is the responsibility of a company to ensure that they put these systems in place. Now, that is not all. We also have advanced threat protection measures, also anomaly detection systems, security information and events management that provide real-time monitoring and analysis of security-related data. Now, in conclusion, data breach pose a significant threat to both individuals and organizations, and exposing sensitive information can lead to identity theft, financial loss, and even damage of reputation. So it is important for organizations to invest in robust security measures implement comprehensive data protection policies, and conduct regular security audits to mitigate the risks associated with data breaches. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Pelumi, for that wonderful presentation from your end. And well done to you and to your group members for putting together that beautiful presentation. So please, we would like to also receive presentation from group 2. Kindly ensure to make your presentation as fast as possible so that we can have enough time, right, to take questions and our mentors can give us proper feedback as regards today's topic. So please, can we have group 2's presentation? Your presentation is for 10 minutes, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Yes, good evening.
My name is Jolade.
Yes, Jolade.
And I'll be presenting for group 2. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen. Please, can you all see my screen now?
Not yet.
How about now?
Still not sharing.
Sorry.
You can kindly start with the introduction while you are still trying to put up your screen.
Okay. So the topic is data breach management. Without wasting too much time, the use of technology has continued to evolve, and with different transactions from different organizations, at one point or the other, you have to share certain personal information like your name, your financial information, and things like that. Now, data breach occurs when unauthorized individuals gain access to confidential or sensitive information. Now, this information can include personal data, like names, social security numbers, medical records, like I said earlier. Now, the Nigerian Data Protection Act defines a personal data breach as a security incident that results in the unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration, loss, or destruction of personal data. And this data breach can occur during transmission, storage, or processing of your personal data. Now, there are common causes of data breaches. They include hacking, that's unauthorized access of computer systems or networks, especially now where the activities where hackers can be your WhatsApp, they can hack your Instagram accounts and different websites that you use. Then we have phishing, that's tricking individuals into revealing sensitive information. Phishing works in like a way of impersonation, where someone impersonates somebody and you reveal sensitive information to that person. Then malware, that is malicious software that can steal or damage data, among others. Now, like our speakers said for today, the consequences of this, can you see my screen now?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
The consequences of a data breach can be very, very terrible. you cannot underestimate it. The organizations can lose their reputation, they can lose their customers, loyalty, the public view about them can be very damaged. And the effect of data breach does not only apply to organizations alone. As individuals, that you have your personal data in those organizations, it can be very, very terrible when your personal information is leaked. For example, the example we used in class, the GTB bank, where was suspected that hackers had gotten into their system. There were a lot of controversies online about it. People were scared. And like what Mr. Emmanuel said, where one of his friends removed all his money. So the effect can be really bad. Now, the best practice is to manage data breaches and incident response team. Now, this is basically a team in an organization that's responsible for managing like when these breaches happen. The team should consist of experts. You want to put people that know what they are doing there, people that have knowledge about data protection, that have knowledge about data privacy, and that will be able to manage the kind of data breach when it occurs. Now, employee training and awareness, you want to, like I said earlier, you want to include experts, and you want to keep training them. If you have as an organization, you want to keep training those people. Then protective technologies, data protection, like blockchain, if I am correct, data encryption. There are various technologies now to protect data, to prevent data breach or data leak. Then post-incident handling, that is learning from data breaches. What were the things the organization did not do, or how could they have protected it better? How could they have stored it better? Then next slide. Okay. Now, the legal and regulatory compliance, globally, I think we have the GDPR. It contains data protection laws, contains the regulations, organizations, data controllers, data processors, and the rights of data subjects. Now, in Nigeria, I have the Nigeria Data Protection Act. It basically it contains the same thing or almost the same thing with the GDPR, and it provides a comprehensive framework for data protection in Nigeria. And it also mandates data controllers and processors to notify the Nigerian Data Protection Commission of any data breach within 72 hours of its occurrence. Now, like I said about the GDPR, was enacted in 2018. It applies to member countries of the European Union and the European Economic Area. Now, the provisions of the end of the Nigerian Data Protection Act applies to organizations, how they are to store personal data, and the rights of data subjects. Data subjects are people like you and me that have our personal information in different organizations that we now. Okay. Then we have the California Consumer Privacy Act. It's like the GDPR too. It provides a do not tell my personal information link and allows consumers to request the deletion of their personal information. One of the rights of a data subject is for you to request that your personal information be deleted. The CCP also imposes penalties for non-compliance, which can reach up to $2,500 per violation. Now, other relevant laws and regulations, there are industry-specific regulations that may apply to certain organizations. We have the HIPAA that applies to healthcare providers. This is what prevents medical centers, that prevents that your doctor from sharing your medical records to people, unauthorized access. And different there are different regulations that regulate certain organizations, basically. Then we have the GLBA and the Educational Rights and Privacy Act that applies to financial and educational institutions, respectively. Then we have court decisions and case law that we have the SCREMS. So in 2020, the Court of Justice of the European Union validated the Privacy Shield framework, which has been used to transfer personal data. This is basically a case that shows like it was a transfer of personal data, and which got leaked, if I am very, very correct. Then it just shows how data breach can be very, very terrible, and the courts impose significant implications for cross-border data transfer and has led to increased scrutiny of data protection practices in the United States. Then we have the Equifax data breach. This is one of the largest data breaches in history. It occurred in 2017. A credit reporting agency experienced a massive data breach that exposed the personal information of millions of consumers. This breach led to a class action lawsuit and significant regulatory scrutiny. Implications for cross-border data breaches. Like I said earlier, one way in which data can be breached is through data transfer. And we have cross-border transfers, like let's say from Nigeria to Ghana. When your personal data wants to be transferred from Nigeria to Ghana, there are certain implications that can occur from this. You have transfer of personal data across borders is subject to the laws and regulations of multiple jurisdictions. If an organization in Nigeria wants to transfer their customers' information to another organization in Ghana, there are certain regulations and there are certain laws that have to guide this transfer. So it basically challenged these organizations to try every measure possible to comply with these applicable requirements, as it helps to prevent data breaches, data leak, and it helps to prevent unauthorized access by unauthorized access. Okay. Wait, the slide is not moving, so I'll just continue. Okay. Now, cyber security awareness and training. Cyber security awareness means continuous education and training of individuals and organizations about the threats that lurk in the cyberspace and best practices to prevent or mitigate such threats when they occur. It's a continuous education and training given to individuals, given to experts in that field on how to treat threats, how to ensure best practices to prevent or mitigate such threats when they occur. Now, the purpose of cybersecurity awareness training is to help prevent those threats to occur, like I said earlier, and to help individuals and organizations to quickly identify threats, mitigate the risk of cybersecurity incidents, and help prevent data breaches. Next slide. Now, promoting a culture of security within an organization, employee training and awareness programs. You have to educate your staff on cyber threats, how to handle those threats, what to do when data breaches occur, and foster a security-minded workforce. You have to raise awareness about the sensitivity of data on systems. You have to make the staff in an organization understand the reason for confidentiality and the reason to protect the personal information of the clients. Communication and collaboration, raise awareness about the sensitivity of data on systems, and provide information on how to detect and avoid phishing emails and other scam tactics. Like I said, phishing is like impersonation, when someone impersonates a particular organization or identity. Now you have to educate your staff. An organization has to educate their staff on how to detect phishing emails and other scam tactics. They leverage technology and tools, can use encryption, blockchain, and all different technologies that can help to ensure more security on your client's personal data. Continuous improvement and adaptation. Yeah, you have to continue to educate your staff. You have to continue to improve, gain more insights about how to protect personal data. Then post-breach remediation and recovery, like what to do after a data breach occurs. Data recovery plans. The first thing is to obviously make plans to get those data back, or if you're not even able to get them back, to stop access from the unauthorized parties, the access that they have to those data. Backup verification. You have to after you make your recovery plans, you have to make a backup verification to ensure that such thing does not happen again. Data encryption, like I said earlier, then continuous improvement, additional consideration, regulatory compliance, legal implications, and communication with stakeholders. Then by implementing effective IRP and execution, legal and regulatory compliance, post-breach remediation and recovery strategies discussed above, organizations can minimize the damages caused by a data breach, restore systems and data, and improve their overall security posture. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jolade, for that wonderful presentation. Well done to you and to your group. You guys did so well. Both groups, I believe both groups did so well in the presentation. But well, that's my personal opinion. Now over to the mentors. I'm sure they have seen your presentation and looked at it from their own technical point of view. So we want them to give feedbacks to the presentation and just basically things that they feel like class still needs to know. We would like for them to highlight in the feedback. So we'll start with Mr. Emmanuel. Mr. Emmanuel, if you're still with us, I would like to get feedback from you. What did you think about the presentation and any other thing you would like to add in regards to today's class?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm back again, this time around with my video on. So you guys were able to see me properly. And I'm a bit cold, so please don't mind me. For the presentations, I will say that both groups, you guys did well, but I still have areas that I will still want us to consider very well. Now, looking at our jurisdiction, which is Nigeria, I will say that we did not cover what key provisions from the NDPA that pertains to data breach and data management. We did not outline those measures and obligations that the NDPA provided. Now, even if I expected you guys to touch the NDPA a bit, bring out some key things that we should take note of, since that is what you will be operating on. Very important, take note of this first point. Not looking in depth into the NDPA. That is not really good. I would like to draw your attention to this. Please take note of it, because the NDA provided for certain steps and obligation for every organization to ensure in the event of data breach. Things like immediate notification, things like, yes, I know that we talked about group 1, especially data breach response, and yes, and group 2 a bit about it. So the NDPA also spoke about data breach response plans, and also how the documentation should be like, and also the risk assessment plan, and so on, and also about the training and awareness for staff. So please take note of this and make sure that you are conversant with the provisions of the NDPA, because that is your primary focus. That is where you will be operating. That is the jurisdiction you'll be operating, the jurisdictional law you'll be operating with. So please take note of it. And group 1 and group 2 and myself, I need to correct this now so that we will all be guided. When you're talking about an attack, please don't refer to the other party as hacker. I made the mistake at first, so let me correct everybody. It's better to use an attacker than hacker. Is that okay? So because I was just hearing hacker, and I had to just think. I said hacker first, so I laid the foundation. So now I'll be raising the foundation. We should all use an attacker instead of hacker, please. When there is an attacker, Thank you very much. And for group 2, you were talking about the privacy shield. And though you didn't share so much light about it, and I would just like to correct something very, very, I guess you guys did not really go deep into it, because yes, that deals with data transfer, both international and local. But I'll just give you a little thought for you to understand privacy shield. Now, privacy shield shows how jurisdiction like the EU will go in order to enforce data protection laws and regulations. What does this mean? For you to be able to get data from any of these jurisdictions as a country or an organization outside the EU or the EEA, there are certain requirements that you must meet up to, which give birth to the privacy, the adequacy decision, the so on and so forth. Let me not go deep into that because we have done that before now. But I want you to know that every jurisdiction, they ensure that they don't only have these laws on ground, but they push to enforce it, to ensure that the data subject is properly safeguarded. And lastly, I would like to just summarize this whole requirement of the measures expected of a company or an organization or a controller and processor. Let me correct it again. An expectation from a controller and processor. The requirement, I will summarize it for us not to forget. I always coin it in a particular way that I will not also forget. The measures a controller and processor ought to put in place, I categorize them into TAP, which includes technical or technology measures, A, administrative, and P is physical measures. So I like the fact that most of us explained so much about the technical measures, which I also call the technological measures, which include restricting access, then enhancing general security, having a robust security plan. Then when we talk about administrative measures, we're looking at employees training, we're looking at having access control management. And lastly, when we talk about physical security, that is ensuring that not everyone will have access to the IT room. So those that will access those premises will either check in with access card, biometrics, or something. They must maintain high level of security to areas where such breach can happen. Then looking at also okay, you discussed social engineering, and you were trying to explain phishing. Now I will make you understand it very well because I'll break it again. I love breaking it to the simplest form so that even if you don't understand, you will remember the simple words I use. A lot of us, sometimes we get emails from people that will just send the link and they'll tell you, click the link to win, click the win, or they'll say which Microsoft is doing 10 years anniversary. Click this link to win. And once you click, it takes you to another. Now, a lot of these links are mainly attacks. Once you click, these attackers will have access to your system. We also have phishing email. Sometimes they send this as emails. Once you get the emails and once you click the link or open, you have granted them access. So we have to be watchful and careful about those forms of attacks. Generally, I'll say your presentations were excellent, very well, and good job to you guys. But I have questions for you as well. I have some questions because I noticed some things that you didn't cover as well. I'll ask some questions, but let me allow the wonderful mentor we want to also speak as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. I really do appreciate your feedback and the points you highlighted, and I'm sure the mentees are paying attention and they are receiving that feedback in good lights. So please, we would like to also would like to also hear from Mr. Ridwan. Yes, sir, Mr. Ridwan, if you're with us, we also like to get feedback from you.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. So I won't say much. Mr. Area said a lot of things, and they are all very valid points. And I will really implore all of the mentees to actually take that to heart. It's quite important. The only thing I would want to add is as regards, because I was also surprised and I wasn't impressed at all as well. That's didn't really discuss, except for I think that's group 2 that spoke a bit about, and it was just a very it was just a passing reference to the NDP. Not that I'm not sure if he even specified the actual provision of law that discusses data breach, and I think that the heading is the personal data breach. I think the NDP. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of points to actually discuss in that section, and even if just that section 40 of the NDPA was divided, apportioned to the two teams, I don't think you might not be able to explore or what was it called now? Exhaust all the necessary points you need to discuss regarding that particular section, because there's a lot of things in that section in terms of when you need to what's it called? When you need to reach out or report to the regulator, when you need to also communicate to your customers, when you need to, if it's a data processor and a data controller, or even if it goes deeper than that, the data processor that is processing on behalf of another data processor who has been engaged by a data controller, and instances where you need to also even report to the NDPA or the NDPC rather, and even to customers as well. So there's a lot of things, there are really lots of things for you to discuss in that particular section. So you really need to go back there because we don't have much time, and I don't want to, time is fast spent already. I don't want to really go deep into that, and that's the reason I outlined some of the things, some of the issues you really need to look at. And if you remember, I spoke a lot about the implementation in terms of how do you operationalize all these things, how do you play it out in the real world, in reality, in the company, how does it really work out? There's a lot of things to work. I understand, and I actually appreciate what you did. I mean, especially group one. I mean, how in depth you went to discuss a lots of concepts relating to data breach. It was quite interesting though. But in terms of the legal aspects, that's the main issue you should have actually discussed or look at. And another thing I would want you to also pay attention to, I like the fact that it was just after section 39 that 40 was discussed. So section 39 really talked about technical measures. I think mostly technical measures, not technical and organizational measures. So it discusses the different technical measures that you can actually put in place to ensure that personal data of your customers are protected, or personal data that is being used by company. Because when I'm saying customers, so don't get me wrong. So when the company is processing personal data, you're not processing just that of your customers. You're processing that of your employees as well, and you need to protect that as well. And there might be some other personal data that is within your systems or databases or data stores or whatever storage device, storage systems you're using, and you really need to protect all of the personal data as far as they fall into the definition of personal data. So, so two assignments, very serious assignments I'm giving you guys is to go back to section 39 and 40 to look at those things. And don't forget STAP, as Mr. Really said, it's quite important to look at the technical, administrative, and physical. It's just that when you're talking about technical and organizational, sometimes it's because the administrative and physical has been merged into organizational. That's why you're not hearing physical. So, but to break it down and for you to remember all the time, I think it's good to remember TAP. So I think that's all I want to say to that. There are other things, but then we don't have much time. And I will even have to take my leave. I'm so sorry. I would have been very happy to talk about, to probably answer some of your questions. I see that none was sent. Probably didn't have questions then, but I believe you have questions. I'm happy that Mr. Iri is still here and is going to do justice to all of your questions. So if you will allow me to take my leave now. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Iri.
Mr. Reward, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Bye, sir. Hopefully we get to talk more later.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan. We really appreciate your time and your presence in class with also the vast information you have shared with us. We sincerely do appreciate everything that you do for us. So now we are going to questions and answers, right? And I think Mr. Emmanuel said that he wants to ask questions. So let's, yes, sir. So please, the floor is yours to ask your questions.
Thank you. Okay, I noticed that they didn't prepare questions, so I have questions for them actually, because I want us to interact on this. We have 23 participants, 19 right now. Okay. Let us discuss so that you understand this very well. Just each person, just give me one. Tell me how can an organization detect a data breach? How can an organization detect a data breach? Just give me one. Who is talking first?
All right, so please, from our mentees, and please, you can kindly unmute and then, or you can indicate if you want to answer Mr. Emmanuel's question. So please, let's do that hastily, right? So if you want to answer Mr. Emmanuel's question, go ahead and do that.
Hi, good evening.
Choma, very good of you.
My name is Choma. I'm a lawyer. Okay, I do not have an idea on cybersecurity, but I am guessing that this is a more technical question. So I would say that one way that a company can detect breaches is by maybe putting in monitoring systems that can go alerts or show a red alert when there is a breach in a data, so that the system alerts the company and they take their initiative and respond on time to rectify the breach. I don't know. That's the opinion I have.
Very, very brilliant of you, Choma. Like, you got the explanation. In fact, I'll just call it excellent, not excellent. You did very well. Now, this is called implementing security information and event management system. That is what you just explained. Implementing security information and event management system. Wonderful. Brilliant of you. I love that point. Who else can give me another one? Come on, guys. We just studied on data breach and management. So imagine yourself in a team and you ask, how can we detect a data breach? Your organization is asking you, how can we detect data breach? What will you answer?
Hello, sir. I think
Yes,
one of the ways is data
Joy.
loss prevention
Okay,
tools.
okay.
So, data loss prevention tool software monitors and controls the transfer of sensitive information. So, if the tools can detect when data is being copied, shared, sent, or transferred in ways that violate security policies that the organization or the data controller or processor has put in place, then it can alert the processor or controller about the possible data breach.
Excellent. Like, Joy, brilliant of you. This is the explanation for IDS and IPS. What is IDS? IDS is intrusive detection system. What is IPS? Intrusive prevention system. Please don't forget IDS, IPS. Very brilliant of you, Joy. The last one, please, so that we can go out of
Hello,
this.
sir. Good evening, sir.
What's your name, please?
My name is Ineolua.
Brilliant.
I'm a
Tell us.
lawyer. Okay,
Okay.
so from my perspective and from what everyone else has said, I think
Yeah.
another major way that an organization can detect data breach is actually maybe training their employees to even identify this data breach, like when it happens, so they can easily point it out and amendment and any necessary thing can be done.
Yes, that's very correct. Very correct. Like having your employees, having them sensitive to any attack so that they will report immediately. So I will categorize what you have said under monitoring network traffic for usual activity, so that once there's an unusual activity, they make a report. So this is a very good point. We have listed 3. Please don't forget. Remember, you're being prepared to be part of a team that will be discussing and implementing policies, regulation. You'll be implementing these policies in a company. So you must know these primary things I am trying to make you understand. If you're asking an organization, how can you detect a data breach? Don't forget IDS and IPS. What is IDS? Intrusive detection system and intrusive prevention system. It has been explained in the simplest form. Another person made mention of implementing security information and event management system. And the last person talked about monitoring network traffic for unusual activity. Once there is an unusual activity, let the employee flag up immediately. So guys, thank you very much for a wonderful time. And as the whole picture was going, I just said, oh, this is nice, because I would like to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. Let us all connect.
Please, I have a short question, just a brief question.
Yes.
Okay. I know that, to the best of my knowledge, you mentioned something about a privacy shield, and I know that through my research that the privacy shield was replaced because of the Max Schrems case. It was replaced with the data privacy net framework, which is a system that controls data transfer or activities between the EU and the US. So the data privacy framework brought about adequacy decisions. And you mentioned something about the privacy shield. So I wanted to know if the privacy shield is still in use, because I know that, to the best of my knowledge, that the data privacy framework replaced the privacy shield. So I wanted to get clarity on that.
Okay. I'll just break this whole thing down in the simplest form again. Now, this privacy shield was made with the main purpose of bringing a mechanism in. Okay, now I've used the big word. A measure in which US and the EU can exchange data, because the US does not fall under the category of countries that are covered under the adequacy decision. So the alternative that the US had to use was the privacy shield. And this privacy shield was a framework that was designed for the transfer of personal data between the EU and US for commercial purposes. So in an instance where a US company have their server or database in the EU, in order for them to share data or share information, they must comply with the requirements of the privacy shield. So the privacy shield was now replaced after the case. So I don't know if you get me. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, as it now in that Schrems case that you spoke about, right?
Yes.
The court invalidated the privacy shield. It is not sufficient enough for the US to exchange data with the EU. That the requirement of the privacy shield is not protective enough. I want to break it to how we can all understand. I don't know if you get it. Now, this jurisdiction, they're trying to protect the data subject, and they're like, for you to take data from here, from the EU to the US, the requirement as contained in the privacy shield is not enough. So the court invalidated the provisions of the privacy shield. I don't know if you get it.
Oh, yes, I understand now, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. In the absence of any question, right, I think it's safe for us to call it a night. It has been a very, very insightful class. Thanks to Mr. Emmanuel and Mr. Ridwan, who have shared just basically they've helped us so much this evening. And I would like to kindly refer the mentees back to the YouTube, because this class is being streamed. You can always visit the YouTube to our YouTube page to have access to this class anytime the need will arise. So in light of that, thank you so much once again, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you to Mr. Ridwan in Essential. With that, we come to the end of today's session. See you next week. Hope next week is going to be the last week we'll be having in the data privacy class. So please come prepared. Ensure you make your presentations ready on time when you'll be assigned your new group, and also do well to share what you have learned today on all your social media platforms. Tag our mentors, Mr. Ridwan and also Mr. Emmanuel. Do well to connect with them. And if you have private questions that you would like to ask them, you can do well to reach out to them. Thank you once again, and good night, everyone.
Good night, sir.